Ex-Republican Governor Matt Bevin recently defended his last-minute pardon of a man convicted of child rape. So now, look, this is a very difficult story. So I just want to let everybody know that, there's, again, this is super, super difficult. Now, during a radio show recently, Bevin was asked how could he defend convicted child rapist Micah Shodel. Now, Bevin, of course, says, well, the reason I pardoned him is because, well, there's no evidence, right? In fact, I have found out further evidence that exonerates him, right? Well, how does he know that? Well, he claims that there's a new witness, that there was a sister that claims that she was there and that it didn't actually happen. But then goes on to make a very scientifically illiterate point. And so I want to, and this is a quote from Matt Bevin verbatim on the show. And again, I'm very uncomfortable saying this. He says that the reason that Shodel couldn't have done this, couldn't have sexually assaulted or raped these young girls. One of them was 9 years old. He said both of their hymens were intact. Obviously, if they're intact, then there couldn't have been any sort of rape that happened. Now, he said this is perhaps more specific than people would want, but trust me, if you have been repeatedly sexually violated as a small child by an adult, there are going to be repercussions of that physically and medically. All right, so look, I felt sick just reading that. Imagine being the person who believes that. I mean, ugh. You're talking about a child's body, and for one, that's not cool. For two, I said it's not even medically telling. According to Dr. George Nichols, now George Nichols was Kentucky's chief medical examiner, and he knows a lot about this situation. And he goes into specifics, a lot of which I am not going to get into. I do not want to get into that, but I do want to get into the relevant quote here. He said this, quote, Bevin not only doesn't know the law, in my humble opinion, he doesn't clearly know medicine and anatomy. And so the things that he had said about this child's anatomy, and that's what it is, was completely wrong and not based in factual information. In fact, according to Forensic Science International, which is a peer-reviewed journal, a survey of pediatric child abuse rape cases indicated that only 2.1% of subjects examined had damage to that specific part of their anatomy. So now this is, of course, female anatomy that we're talking about here. So now Kenton County Commonwealth Attorney Rob Sanders also weighed in. Now, he prosecuted the 2018 case against Shodel and has called for an investigation into Bevin's pardon. He added that the ex-governor is, quote, ignorant of the medicine and science in child rape cases. Even the defense experts testified that they would not expect to find injury in the victim's sexual assault exam, Sanders said in a text message to the Courier Journal. This was the subject of an 8-hour court hearing that Matt Bevin obviously never watched. It's true. So now here's the thing. I get really tired of these male Republican politicians that love to make laws about women's bodies and yet don't understand a damn thing about women's bodies. I mean, you guys remember Todd Legitimate Rape Aiken, right? He's the guy that said, well, I mean, if you can't get pregnant from a rape. If it's a legitimate rape, I mean, your body knows how to shut that thing down. No, that's not how this works. And just earlier this month, Ohio Republicans tried to pass an anti-abortion bill. Now, this bill would punish doctors with prison time, about 15 years in prison, up to, if they don't try to do things to save the fetus. For example, reimplant an ectopic pregnancy. There's only one problem with that. That's literally impossible with current medical techniques and technology. Maybe one day. Of course, not if people like Matt Bevin are in charge or people who are deeply anti-science. But these people, again, and let's be honest, men do not understand how women's bodies work, but they are making decisions that affect women, and ironically, not men. None of the decisions they make when it comes to people's bodies really affect men. And so in this case, Matt Bevin let a convicted child predator go free because of his incredible ignorance. Now, in the interview, of course, he's like, oh, no, it's the prosecutor's fault. You need to look at the facts. He said if they can defend keeping an innocent person in jail, that's their prerogative. In America, I'm all for innocent people not being incarcerated. And again, his evidence is scientific illiteracy. And so, I mean, that's disgusting, man. But this is not the only controversial pardon. He also defended convicted killer Patrick Baker. So now Patrick Baker was in prison serving a 19 years prison sentence for reckless homicide, robbery, and impersonating a peace officer when they did a home invasion. So now the thing about this one, not exactly based on ignorance, at least when it comes to women. This might actually be based on being bribed. Let me give you the details on that. Now, Baker's brother and sister-in-law had hosted back in 2018 a fundraiser for Matt Bevin at their Corbin home. They raised $21,500 to help retire debt from the governor's 2015 campaign. Not only that, but a GOP mega donor named Terry Fort also got involved. Now, according to the Courier-Journal, the founder of Corbin-based Fort Bank has given over more than $1 million to Republican candidates, committees, and super PACs over the past decade, according to a review of state and federal campaign records. Letters show that Fort had twice recommended Baker for a pardon. And of course, now, look at that. Matt Bevin, on his way out after being beaten by Andy Beshear, decides to give this guy a pardon. Now, this is over advice, by the way, from State Representative Denny Butler. Now, Denny Butler, the reason I bring him up is that he's an investigator who was looking into Baker's case on behalf of Matt Bevin. So this guy, Matt Bevin, says, go ahead and look at this case, see if we should give this guy a pardon. Well, he looks into it, and he says, you know what? We probably shouldn't pardon this guy. But at this point, Matt Bevin's already been bought. He's already been given over $20,000 to retire the debt from his campaign. And so he's like, all right, gotta let him go. I believe that he's innocent. Right. Now, in what's most telling about this interview, Bevin acknowledges that Fort's opinions carry more weight because of the money he contributes. I mean, that right there is, they're just being honest at this point, right? Rubbing it in your face. Of course, the people who give me money, campaign contributions, yes, their opinion matters more than regular people. I mean, who cares about the families of the victims? No, they didn't just cut me a check. Maybe if you cut me a check, well, then I'd be on your side. Or if you had a couple billionaires behind you that were giving me money, then I would be on your side. Oh, you don't have that? Well, then screw off. I'm going to go back this guy. I'm going to go use my power to let not only a convicted rapist free, but also a murderer. I mean, this is gross. Absolute gross. I mean, does it look like corruption? Yes, it looks like corruption because it is corruption. Matt Bevin, I mean, just proves that once again, he's a terrible, terrible guy. The sooner he's out of the public spotlight, the better. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.